Hi, everybody. It's Lydia, and I'm here today on this podcast and YouTube channel, the Avanti Wellness Podcast and YouTube channel, with my guest, my very special guest, Sharon Kapp. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Lydia. How are you? Thank you for welcoming me and inviting me to this podcast.
Yes, it's great to see you. And thank you so much for coming and being a guest on the show today. I like to start off by sharing with my audience how I know or don't know my guest. And I'm so pleased to tell you that I actually know this guest. And then I'm going to let Sharon introduce herself and give y'all a little bit of background. But today's topic for this show is just an introduction to Ayurveda, what it means, how do people benefit from it and use it. And Sharon has resources that she can share with you that can help you understand it more. And if it all goes well and Sharon's happy, we'll have her back for another episode and we'll dive deeper because she's a wealth of knowledge. And so I'm so happy that you can share your wisdom with my audience today. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
So let me just start off by sharing that I actually met Sharon in Houston in about 2010, 2011. We were trying to track it back. I had started a group called the United Resources Networking Group. And really, it was just a way for all of us to network together that were kind of like in alternative health and wellness. And she became a member of that. And I met her that way. And then subsequently, a year later, I was really working on my health. And I asked her if she would help me to do a cleanse and kind of go through. And I wanted to learn like the Ayurveda concept, philosophy, process, and clean out my body and kind of have a reset. And so I worked with her for it's probably about like a 30-day period, a window that we worked together, that I worked with her for. And we're going to talk about that either later in the episode or on another episode. So that's how I know Sharon. And subsequently, we've stayed in touch over the years. And recently, I went back out. It was like a 10-year reunion. I came back out to her center. She has a lot of neat aspects to her center, which she'll tell you about, but she actually has an addition of 2 cows. Those are so cute. So will you introduce yourself? And I really want you to just kind of go back a little bit because I want the audience to feel like they know why you're doing what you're doing today based on your background. Okay.
Yeah, so I am Sharon Kapp. I was raised in India, but I've traveled the whole world. I married a wonderful German gentleman, and so I have the last name of Kapp, which is German. And my heritage is also mixed German and Indian. And I grew up in India where Ayurveda is the way of life. It's your grandmother's recipes, your kitchen recipes. It's what you do before you have to go to an emergency doctor. And so it was my passion, yoga and Ayurveda. But like every good Indian girl, we listen to our parents and we get an education. So, of course, I chose to do a business education at one point, and I thought, this is not for me. This is for the birds. I'm not interested in numbers and such stuff. I want to have fun. And so then I went into the medical line. And of course, I got married to my husband. We moved here. We had a little bit of a gap between the ability for me to work and the visa change. That was the time I went full time into Western education to study medicine to see what I could do about it. I consequently started working at a cardiologist. We were in Ohio at this time. And of course, I took great pleasure in teaching yoga and applying the aspects of Ayurveda that I already knew. But at this point, I had no real qualification in Ayurveda. So I decided to go back to school and I graduated as a doctor of Ayurveda and certified by NAMA, which is the board in America, through the California College of Ayurveda. And I have never looked back. This is my passion. I love people. I love making sure that they are healthy and happy in an easy way. Why complicate things? And why not spend your money on things that are pleasurable for you if you can keep your body healthy? And so, with this in mind, I started out of a small little office at my home, seeing clients, and eventually, got so many clients that were interested that came with bigger problems, psychological problems, communicable disease problems, and I thought, well, I can't do this out of my home. Therefore, I bought this 3-acre lot, which is pretty close to home. If I drive like a crazy woman, I'm home in literally 7 minutes. If I follow the road rules, 10 minutes. So it was best of both worlds. My kids were old enough now; they didn't need me to hover around them. They were in high school, college, doing their stuff, and now they're grown men. And so I have this beautiful space where we grow all the tropical medicinal plants over here that we can. And we have two beautiful cows, Uma and Shankar. Cows are very important in India for the ecology, for the environment, for your plant manure, and for medicinal purposes as well. And these are the special cows that have a hump on the back. We call that hump a Surya Nadi. It's got a special kind of fat, just like a camel. And so the proteins in their milk are amazing. They help you to get healthy. They remove disease from the body. They don't create the acidic content in the body like most milk does. And so we have some chickens as well. We have some peacocks over here, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful place in the middle of Cyprus in Texas. And you should come and visit anytime you're here.
Yeah. Well, it's really in the city of Houston for the most part. It's probably, is that also considered Harris County? Are
It
you
is
in Harris?
Harris County. It's the
Okay.
northwest of Houston. So we are very accessible from 290 to 49 as well.
Yeah, you're about 30 minutes away from me. So,
That's
but it's
right.
a quick trip. So yes, it's very pretty there. And so you also have like classes, like you do yoga there for the community. And what
That's
else do you do
correct. That's
there?
correct. So we are a nonprofit, and so we have community classes over here twice a day, 9:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the evening. And the emphasis is always on the Ayurvedic aspect of the doshas that we'll be talking about shortly. But we don't just do yoga as an exercise for the body. We do it as an exercise, an expression of the mind, a development of the mind, the body, and the spirit. It's for everybody. We adapt it to every level, every capacity, and it's about learning how to be kind and honoring yourself through the process of living every day.
Absolutely. And I do have a few questions after you introduce Ayurveda to help the audience understand the importance of being good to your nervous system,
Yeah,
and keeping your body calm. So that's like a big part of our health. And I think that's part of what's challenging about our lifestyle is that we're constantly in stress mode to survive and make money and get there and do that and have that and be that we're just too wired up, and so we've got to calm down a little bit to
true.
have health, right?
Yeah, I like to remind people that we are human beings, but we are actually living as human doings, which is doing stuff all the time. We have not learned how to be in the moment. And yoga and Ayurveda are both about being in the moment and honoring yourself where you are at the moment.
Yeah. So let's dive in. Like where I want to go is, let's just assume somebody found this video. They have no idea what even Ayurvedic is. And let's start from the beginning so people understand how old Ayurveda really is and where all the history and the information and the testing of herbs to see what works. Let's talk about that so people have a baseline of
Sure,
Ayurveda. So
sure, absolutely.
introduce that.
So Ayurveda, Ayur and Veda, these are two subcategories that come together to form the word Ayurveda, and it means the science of self-healing. And that means everything that can be used to heal a human being is used. Everything that's used correctly becomes a medicine. Everything that's used incorrectly becomes a poison. So sometimes even poison can be medicine. And it has been the practice in India for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, even when they did the excavations of Mohenjo-daro in Harappa, they found seals, they found herbs, they found protocols, all of these kind of things. But for practical purposes, it's the only and the oldest known written treatise on medicine that the Western world is actually adapted to and following. In fact, even plastic surgery was being practiced in India, well, 5,000 and more years back. The British, when they invaded India, were surprised to see a common cobbler sitting on the street and doing a rhinoplasty. They literally cut out a piece of skin from the top of the forehead. They flipped it over. They took out cartilage from the ears, reconstructed the nasal pharynxes, and then they put the skin over and they healed it. And they were like, how's a common man able to do this? How are they able to manage without pain? And so then started the British investigation into what are these people doing? How do they know this knowledge? And they found out all of these books. And along with that Goethe, all of these people came in from Germany, from everywhere else, picked up all our text and took it and translated it. And then they found out that we were using herbs for anesthesia, marma points, which are vital energy points or acupressure points to dull the body while they were doing surgery. But the first rule was ahimsa, non-violence, first do no harm. And that's what we have adapted to Western medicine as the Hippocratic Act right now. So we know that this is a very old science. It has been tried and tested over the thousands of years. It's been practiced majorly in India and Asia around us, in China, in parts of Lithuania, in parts of Russia, definitely Afghanistan and the whole Middle Eastern area. All of them practice a version of Ayurveda.
Yeah, and from what I remember in our 10-year ago conversation, I mean, basically a lot of people are super familiar with just the concept of, they've heard Chinese medicine, they've heard that term, but they don't realize that Ayurveda was the source of Chinese medicine. Like Ayurveda was first, right, in India, and then the Chinese were able to take information that was educated to them or what have you, taught to them, and
so
then turn it into
the principle was we had free education in India, and people from all over the world via the Silk Route, via the Damascus route for trade would come for spices, for silks, for materials, for all of these things. And it was a country that practiced nonviolence and the highest form of dharma. Dharma is your spiritual duty. So everybody's born with a certain capacity that brings out something that's unique within them that can be of use to everybody else on this planet. And that dharmic purpose, they enhanced it through a free education. That means every person on the planet, no matter where you were from, where you arrived from, you had a free space to stay, free food and education for as long as you wanted to. And so education, they believe that in order to change society, we need an educated society. And the more that the conscience was tuned in and more that they were aware of how life functioned, the less fear there was and the less violence there was. And so there was this beautiful dharmic principle of how to live and what makes life better, not just for the individual, but for the whole environment. And the whole cosmic movement was put into the circadian rhythm function, responding with the light, the sound, the air, the earth, the water, and the sunshine. And those are the 5 principles of Ayurveda.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That reminds me, I just want to mention this. I'd love to have you on another episode where we just talked about the circadian rhythm and the importance of it, because I know as I'm trying to lose weight right now that I've read, and I think it was Ayurveda that says you should only eat during daylight hours, like, when the sun's up. So, because your body is working with the moon and the sun, and it's like trying to shut down. We can talk about that later, but I would love to do an episode about that because I know that's important.
Absolutely.
So, did you feel like you kind of completed the introduction of Ayurveda? Is there anything else specifically about an intro part of Ayurveda before we go
No,
into
and
the?
I would like to add just one more thing, that even though Ayurveda originated in India, it's not just about using the Indian herbs that are available, or the formulations that are available over there. Everything that's created has a cosmic particle, material matter to it that can be utilized. So whether you're in the USA, whether you're in Greece, whether you're anywhere in the world, what we look at the chemical formulation and the effect of the plant that's available, and we basically use bringing that quality into healing the person.
So the environment as well, right? Wherever you
Environment
are.
is the biggest factor, because we are the environment.
Right. I said that today on our earlier video that I created about there's a whole we are an ecosystem in our whole body. It's just encased inside of our body.
We are the whole
Um,
cosmos, in fact, in the body, the molecular structure of every atom. Carbon is, how it's formed, the basic life force of human formation. All of it is important.
I know you're gonna blow my audience's mind. We've got the cosmos inside of us. No, I agree. And actually, there's like, I don't know where I watch so many different things, but when I hear something and it makes sense, it sticks, like when we go back to dust, when we die, like it's carbon, right?
Yes,
Our
yes.
bodies are full of carbon. So,
Yeah.
anyway, it's so very interesting. Um, all right. So let's do kind of the basic overview about the Kapha, Pitta, and Vata, like explain that. We won't go into detail about each one because that'll take too long and we're like at 16 minutes right now. But let's just explain why those things are important and what the basis of it is, because we'll do future episodes where you can talk and drill in about the qualities of a kapha, and we'll talk about how you help identify when you have a patient or a client, I guess. You analyze their situation and you determine what their what is it called, their makeup, or what do y'all call their
The
distinction,
dosha.
the dosha. But isn't there like an English word that
We
they're
can, there are many words, but none of the words actually express what the
represent?
real
Yeah.
word is in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a very beautiful language, the origin of many languages that we have today, origin of Latin, connected to the Indo-European languages as well. So, but dosha can be translated in very many ways. But when I get to explaining about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, then we can understand it a little bit better.
I heard the word constitution, like what's your constitution? And that's how I've been
That's
heard
a
of.
pretty good expression of what a dosha would be.
Okay.
Dosha is, some people will call it a fault, because dosha is the sound of something that doesn't vibrate correctly.
Oh,
So
okay. That's interesting.
the translation to constitution, you can imagine, is very flawed, really. But it's the easiest way to make a Westerner know that we're looking at a malfunction or a deviation in your constitution,
Like
in
an
your
imbalance.
formulation. It's a formulation that's slightly out of whack. That's a dosha.
Yeah, similar to like an imbalance.
That's correct.
What's out of whack, what's imbalance that we need to
Yeah,
balance
and
up.
to understand that out of whack or that imbalance, we have to understand what your balance is, or what your original balance is, your original formulation, in fact.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So dive in and we'll go for a little while and you can explain those things. And then we're going to wrap up with, I want to talk about some things that you told me. And then we later, when we do another episode, we can go dive deeper into that. So sure,
Sure.
he'll take it away, Sharon.
Just jump in, because you know me, I like to talk a lot. So just jump in and tell me to be quiet.
I'll give you hand signals if it's time to cut it off. No, go ahead. You're fine. You're doing
Sure.
great. Thank you.
So I love to explain the concept of of humanity and its beautiful creation, to the concept that we understand the most, that's water. If I were to ask a person, what is water? To somebody who was raised and educated might say, oh, it's actually hydrogen and oxygen, two bonds of hydrogen to one of oxygen. And I'd be like, but can you see the hydrogen and the oxygen in the water? And the answer is, of course, no. But before anything becomes something that we can see, just like water, the hydrogen and oxygen has a potential. And so this potential, it could become a hydrogen bomb, it could become water, it could become any other form of formulation of hydrogen, you see. But this is how human beings are. We are made of this cosmic material that has a pure potential to become hydrogen, to become oxygen, to become anything that we have to become. And so when we start out, we are in this invisible sphere, and there, for lack of a better word, we call it ether. And we call this pure potential that's going to manifest present in the ether. And so the ether is this beautiful this compilation of everything that's required that can make a human being out of it. And so the ether is the beginning or the building blocks that have to be moved together. So that brings the movement aspect of it. We call that air, because air has a vibrational effect to it. It moves things. So it moves these molecules together. And when they come together, something needs to translate it. But that bonding of the molecules that come together, we call as Vata. Vata is this mixture of ether, this pure potential, and the movement of selection of bringing these things based on a vibration. What is that vibration? In all religions, we have Om, Amen, Amen, Hum. The sun has this vibration that now NASA has classified as a hum, and all planets have their own vibration, of course. So these particles, they move together, and as the sun is moving at 72,000 miles in this toroidal movement through space, it has a vibration effect to it. And as we respond to that vibrational effect, that heat that's generated, that light that's generated, that spectrum of light then transforms these molecules of ether and air into something that we can see tangible. In our case, we're talking about hydrogen and oxygen. It transforms into something we can see as water, drop of water, dew drop, whatever you want to call it, based on the spectrum of light that is hitting these molecules of ether. And so Kapha, we call as the earth and water, is that solid structure that we can see, that's tangible. And Pitta is this vibrational effect of heat that's generated, that creates within our body fluids, like our digestive fluids, like our intelligence, that's fluid. So the qualities are five: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And these we call the basics of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Now, the home of Vata is the colon, because it has the most amount of movement over there, and it has diversional movement, up, down, sideways, absorbing, distributing, eliminating, creating. All of these kind of things are classified as Vata. So even though the home of Vata is your colon, your digestive system, your nervous system, your thought process, anything that moves actually is considered to be in the domain of the subdoshas or the subqualities of the movement of Vata. And Vata is the most unstable of all, because it is the building blocks of life. It's just starting out. It hasn't really created anything, has no stability, has no form as yet. So then we come up to the digestive system, the mid part of the body, where we say this is the home of Pitta. Pitta is this fire, this energy of transformation. So if you want to be an intelligent human being, you have to take care of your digestion as well. If you can't digest your food, you're not about to digest the information correctly. If you're eating badly and you're not absorbing your material, then you are just consuming your life with useless media, things that don't really enhance your education as well. So generally, if we have good microbiome in the digestive system, if we're able to have a good enough quality to the digestive acids, then we can digest our food. Then once that is digested, then the body is at ease, and then the brain and the intelligence works. So pitta is very important. And then that brings us to the last dosha that we call kapha. And kapha is everything that's soft and sweet and nourishing and loving and kind and generous, and that resides in our lungs, and that is where we have the soft tissue, the alveoli, the mucosa, the brain, the myelin sheath, the orgasmic fluids, the ejaculatory fluids, the bone marrow, your cartilage, anything that gives you sustenance, that gives you stability, is kapha in nature. So now we know this vata lives in the colon, mainly in the nervous system, pitta in your digestive and intelligence system, and kapha in the solid structures, the supportive structures of your body. Now, here comes the biggest kicker. In the West, everybody wants to be very slender. Talking about body types, everybody's body type is based on the amount of this vata, pitta, and kapha that they have. So if you had very little kapha, you'd be like a poor person, you'd be very skinny, you'd have no resources, you'd have no longevity, you could get old easily, your skin would fall apart, your bones would fall apart, your body would fall apart. But if you were naturally a vata person, then you had a certain quantity that worked for you. Now, when we respect this natural formulation, then it works in its entirety to the maximum benefit of the human being who's created in that likeness. Therefore, a vata person has certain characteristics that we can identify them with. They generally will tend to be irregular, irregularly thin, irregularly fat, irregularly tall, irregularly short. There's something always irregular about them. One eye may be big, one eye may be small. They might have, an ability to start talking and then go off in another direction. So then we know, okay, your body may be kapha or pitta, but your brain is definitely vata today. Okay, so there are some variations, but there is also certain formulations that don't change. What do I mean by that? Water is a formulation. You can put color in it, you can put juice in it, you can boil it, you can put mud in it, you can use it for baking, but it's still water. So you're still vata if you're born that way, but you might have a variation to that over your lifetime. And if it's a good variation, it's great for your personality, for your constitution, for your doshic balance. We call that prakriti. But if it's like muddy water, then we're like, oh my goodness, there's something that's not working correctly. So we know that's an imbalance now in the body. So we want to always bring balance to the body. And vata is the most delicate of all. The mind changes often. Everything is irregular. They sleep at the wrong time or they wake up at the wrong time. They change their mind 150 times. But the good part of that is they're just so creative. They're like this fresh air, this fresh breeze that comes with great ideas, that loves to dance, loves music, is creative. And when all of that is taken care of in the form of the body, then that flourishes. Now, suppose we weren't taking care of the physical vata body, then they have deep amounts of fear, insecurities, panic attacks, all psychological diseases. These kind of things can happen. And then we move to pitta. Pitta people are very constitutionally solid. If they are born with a constitution like this, the whole body gets fat like this, or whole body got skinny like this. They never go this way or this way. They're very regular in their irregularities as well. Pitta people are you generally no nonsense kind of people. They're like, tell me what you want. I'm going to give it to you if I can. If I can't, I'm going to say no. They make great leaders. They make great bosses. And when the body is great, they're strong. Strong. They love physical stuff because they're all about that Mars energy, about transformation of the heat of the blood, the heat of the digestive system. They're like, give me a challenge. I can do this. And they're always ahead of the game. They're thinking one step ahead of their opponents. So if you want a good boss, you got to find a good pitta person for that.
Let me
If you
write
want
that
a good
down. I'm going to write that
advertising
one
person,
down.
you
Okay,
got to find a
audience, write
good
that
vata
down. A
person.
pitta person.
Yeah. And so, but pitta people, when they're balanced, they're just awesome. They want to take care of everything. They want to make sure everything works great. Oh, all our mechanical engineers, they are good examples of of Pitta people. You see, they don't have all that flowery stuff around them. They just give me the facts. I'm going to give you the product that you want.
The
And you're gonna
results,
get
they
it
get the
done.
results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, your digestive system, goes for a tumble. You're eating wrong, you're overworking, your ego stepping in the way and saying, I want more of this, I want more of that, forget about sleep, forget about food. Okay, now we have inflammation. Inflammation is the antithesis of Pitta. Once you have inflammation in your body, then you become judgmental sometimes. Sometimes you just have anger issues. Sometimes it won't even be anger, it will just be a loss of motivation for you, or maybe even overwork, or it may be inflammatory diseases. Generally, anything ending with an itis is a good expression of Pitta gone crazy. So you want to balance Pitta, but it's the easiest one to balance because it's right in the middle. You see. And then that brings us to dear Kapha. Kapha people are amazing. They are soft and round and juicy. And oh my goodness, they are born with an immunity that lasts forever. They're born with longevity. They take their time to understand whatever they want to understand. And when they understand it, they're like, oh, I can do the best job of this and nobody's going to drop my tower down. So they're just like the salt of the earth people. And naturally, if you're born a Kapha person, if you're nice and strong and juicy and not worried about a lot of things, you make no money for the industry that likes Vata imbalance and Pitta imbalance people, you see. So then we're shamed into being a Kapha body. Well, in fact, you have muscles that are bigger. You have bone structure that has more bone marrow. You have more stability. You're stronger. You can come back and last longer. And so every one of these have a benefit to it. And Kapha people are like, manana, let's do it later. Why? What's the hurry? It's earth and water. They don't want to hurry about anything. They want to be sweet. They want to be kind. But when the Vata and Pitta interfere in Kapha and dry out that moisture, they become obstinate. They dry out like a rock. You can't move them at that time. They're going to be obstinate, dig their heels in and say, I'm just going to say no for the sake of saying no. And that's it. You can't change their mind.
They're
Um,
strong-minded.
yes, and so this can be detrimental to their health in the form of their obstinacy. Means that they're just going to not go to the gym because now somebody's insulted them there, or they're just not going to study a subject because they didn't get the first grade and somebody was smarter. A Pitta person probably made them feel stupid. And so there's all kind of psychological, emotional, and physiological conditions that our chemistry is responding to. Now, I say chemistry because your chemistry is separate from what we call the spirit in your body. Your spirit in your body is the passenger. Your beautiful Vata, Pitta, and Kapha body is your vehicle. And you're going on this journey using the five senses to direct you. So, the five senses, in other words, are going to be formed on the basis of your life experiences. Therefore, to us, the physical body has to be maintained so that it has longevity. So, in Ayurveda, the science of self healing, what we're really doing is we're working not because we are afraid of dying early. Everybody has to die. The moment you're born, you're getting ready to die. What we want for you is to have a nice, long, healthy, happy, and productive life. Because the longer you live and the healthier you are, the more useful you're going to be to the planet, and the more you're going to develop spiritually, intellectually, and cosmically in this journey. And that's really what it is. It's about how can you be of service after you have found out what you are amazing at. And that, in a nutshell, is how we look at Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in a human being.
That is so beautiful, Sharon. I just getting chills just hearing you explain it. And it's so well rounded. I mean, you're bringing in like the spiritual side and the physical side, and really that's what Ayurveda is. It looks at the whole system, right?
It
It's
is the
not
whole system.
it doesn't separate mental from physical, and it's all part of the whole ecosystem of yourself. So I love that. That was perfect. It was a great explanation. So, and I want to keep the video kind of short, and we'll do another video where we can go in depth, and each one, maybe we'll title each video separately. Like we'll just talk about Kapha, we'll just talk about Pitta, Vata, whatever. So that people who might want to figure out who they are, but also like they really need someone like you who can, with all the information, help them determine what their imbalances are. But can we dive into just, I want to, my whole platform is about using myself as an example so that other people can find their own journey through my story. And I like to share, I'm comfortable sharing my own experiences so that others can find a connection and hopefully be interested and feel more safe about trying something that might be outside of their comfort zone. And so this might be a stretch for you. And if you can't remember things that I ask you, it's okay. But I'm going to go ahead and ask anyway. When I came to see you about, I don't know, what was that, like 3 months ago, 2 months ago? We were talking about health. And, I was telling you that I hadn't been sick, in a long time, like over 10 years. I haven't really had to have any kind of, assistance. And you said, that's because you're and then I think you said Kapha something. Can you describe like how you saw
Sure.
me? And the reason I want to do that is because one of my things I want to express in my whole big platform is just because you're fat doesn't mean you have to be an unhealthy fat. And I'm not proposing that I stay fat. I'm not happy in this physical form when everything's, not working as efficiently. I'm more imbalanced. I'm imbalanced when I'm fat, when I'm heavier. And by the way, I don't have an issue with fat. I mean, fat is just like what I lose when we eat fat. And so like I don't have there's no trigger for me for that word. So I hope I'm not triggering someone else. But basically, just because you're overweight or imbalanced does not mean you have to be unhealthy and imbalanced, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to give my audience some encouragement. Like you could be overweight and you're over your ideal weight, and even over, like in my case, I'm over 100 pounds over what I should be. And the reason we got into this conversation is because I told you that I was like 30 pounds heavier than when you worked with me 10 years ago. And so I was kind of feeling bad because I wasn't better than, I was when I saw you 10 years ago. And you said to me, and then we'll go into that, like you were explaining to me that
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
looked healthy, even though I am
Absolutely.
overweight. You thought my energy. So talk about how you saw me when you saw me a couple of months ago.
So one of the things we have to remember is that we have this body type of predominantly Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and it's a combination of all three. It's never one, but one is more dominant than the other. And so when you look at a certain body type, this person has bigger bone structure, so therefore bigger cholesterol molecules, therefore bigger fat cell molecules as well. And there's a reasoning for this. When you make this extra fat cells in your body, it's not always because of what you eat. It's very often because of what you think and how you feel. Because when you put yourself into the fight and flight response of judgment, of feeling inferior or feeling stressed out, and it could be not about the body, it could be about the environment, it could be about the political space, it could be about age, it could be about relationships. But when you're sensitive to some things and you move between the sympathetic and parasympathetic response in the body, then your body has this ability to make certain endorphins, certain chemicals that are literally coming out of your own body. It's not by what you're eating, but by what you are making. Now, having said that, we do make some of those endorphins. For example, if you were to eat pork from an animal that was killed horrendously, or beef from an animal that was stressed out of its mind before it was slaughtered, it would naturally also make those same endorphins of fear, those same hormones, the same endorphins, and it would be infused in its flesh, in its meat. And when a human being would eat that, they would add now to their level of stress that they have created by their own thinking process. So now we still have this constitution, but this constitution is progressively wrapping these horrendous, hot molecules of inflammatory response in molecules of fat. And some of us have more wrapping paper because we're kapha. So we store more of this in our fat cells versus a vata person who would be very slender and they can only store it in the fat that they naturally have in the body, in the brain, the myelin sheath, the joints. So when you're a kapha person, you can tell, okay, yes, you're healthy, but you have had some stress and you have not learned how to deal with your stresses yet. So you continue to make this stress hormone that you are storing outside of your body organs in the fat cells of your body. Okay, so that is what is happening when you see somebody. You can tell the quality of kapha. Is this your natural kapha, your good fat, or is this the good fat that's covered with the bad fat and is looking bigger now? Is it more inflammatory in process? And so sometimes we can put on fat really easily just by being a kapha person and having thought processes or the circadian rhythm or the sleeping cycle that we'll talk about at some later point, how that affects you. So you could be eating well, sleeping badly, and you could be getting fat just because you're sleeping at the wrong time or the spectrum of light that's falling on your body is incorrect for your constitution. And that can cause you to have inflammatory process that could make you fatter. And somebody who was a vata person or a pitta person having the same situation may not put on weight, but they might get a cancer or they might have an inflammatory disease as a response. So you can have the same stressor, but each body type, based on its imbalance, is going to have a different response to it.
Well, and I know that the body needs movement, and if it's not moving, it's like staying stagnant. Like I think about the sewage system that moves through the body and the lymphatic
Lymphatics.
system. Yeah, I just called it sewage so other people could have a concept of what the
Correct.
lymphatic system really does. It carries the waste out. But
Absolutely.
if you are like immobile or you don't move as much as your body needs to move, which is partly my case. Like just, I did not have a lifestyle of enough movement. So whatever calories I might be eating, they don't get utilized out of the body. They just go, okay, well, I'm going to store those for a rainy day. And I was making a joke on a video the other day that if we did have a famine and food shortages were lacking in the future, I would be one of the last survivors because I could live off of my food storages for months before I
Well,
went.
that's a very good point you bring up because in the Western world we look at calories. Your calories mean nothing to your body once you have eaten them because it's not storing it as an edible calorie anywhere. Once your food is eaten, it breaks down. And what is happening is movement for kapha people is earth and water. We need to move it more for it to flow. While as air can move easily, there's no restriction. Vata people don't need to move that much, you see. And so we have to understand that, yes, we need movement, but irregular movement. Suppose a kapha person had irregular movement. Suppose you went to the gym and you were working and you were going like breathing irregularly, like this way. That's an irregular movement. You would put on more fat. Versus if you went to the gym and you went, you would lose
Controlled.
fat. You see?
Yeah,
So it's about, it's not just about the calorie content.
it's balance.
It's about how are you moving that after you have digested it. You remember what I said? Anything we don't digest becomes a poison in the body. So if you eat a lot of calories, but you have enough acid in your body and you have enough peace of mind and you sit down and you eat it, those calories will be absorbed in your body differently than if you were running on the gym or in stress, driving in traffic and eating something. Though the same meal, the same calories would be different in your body. One would make you fat just because you were in stress mode, in fight and flight, and the other one you would be in rest and digest. It would not make you fat.
Yeah. So I want to share this quick story about working with you, and then we'll wrap it up, and then we'll do another episode where we can go again another round. But I wanted to share that 10 years ago when I did my cleanse with you, you explained to me, part of the protocol was, okay, just take it easy. Don't do, you're going to be fasting. And I was fasting through like eating a particular low digestible food source. It was like mung beans. It's called khichdi. Y'all can look it up. It's like a low, it doesn't take the body a lot to digest it, and it gives you a lot of nutrition. So you're fasting, but that's because you're just eating that like 3 times a day. And so you were instructing me, don't do strenuous exercise. I thought it was okay. So this is where I was wrong. I thought it was because I didn't ask. I didn't clarify why. I just assumed. And, this is my education. So basically, I was doing kickboxing during the time. I thought I thought Sharon was telling me don't do strenuous exercise because, and again, I didn't ask, because you thought like, oh, you couldn't do it because you were fasting. So when we came back for the end of the 30 days and we did the big results to try to figure out how much weight I had actually released, it was only at like 20 pounds. And you were saying, oh, I really thought, based on how good you were doing your cleanse, you would have normally lost a lot more. And then you said, well, what did you do? And I told you that, well, I still did my kickboxing class. And you said, oh, that's why, because kickboxing is a major form of fight or flight. You are literally jabbing and punching. You are fighting in kickboxing. The body doesn't know that I'm not fighting for real. It doesn't know I'm, fighting for exercise and fun and to lose and build muscle. So that really sunk into me about how important the body's how you treat it when you exercise, and how these over strenuous type exercise like marathon running and kickboxing and things that are like super intense workouts, they have their place, I guess, for the right body constitution, right?
And
I
the right
mean,
time. Not
yeah,
definitely not during
not during a
or
fast.
not during a fast or not during a cleanse.
Right. Don't
That's
go
when you
do an
need to really get
Ironman on
the
a 30-day
digest.
fast.
Yeah. We'll talk
So,
more about that because what you bring up is a very valid point, because we can only make our assumptions based on the information that we have been raised with. And while for me, I have been raised with a lot of different varieties of information, we have to recognize that a great amount of our audiences are only raised with understanding the basic concepts of, if I don't move, I'm going to get fat, but not in the concept of when should I move and how should I move to not be fat. So there's a great gap in our understanding and the plasticity of information that's available today. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm going to check mark on these boxes whether I'm Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Oh, and by the way, these are the foods for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Oh, by the way, these are the exercises for Vata and Pitta and Kapha. That is a diminution of the greatness of Ayurveda. That is a bastardization of knowledge. Excuse me saying that, but that is a very great offense to the knowledge of Ayurveda, that we have minimized it into a form of exercise or a form of blatantly just checking off boxes. So you're right. People do need to find a competent practitioner, a doctor that can help them understand. And sometimes it takes a lot of time, but it is expensive. And unless they absorb this and they do it diligently, they may be wasting their time. So finding a good practitioner is vitally important, and staying the course and asking beautiful questions is the way for us to learn more about it.
this is a global situation with YouTube and, my podcast on Apple Podcast and everything. Are you able to do client consultations and help through the Zoom and through
Yes,
the
I do.
internet?
I have clients from all over the world, and we do Zoom.
Okay, good. Okay, so that anybody who's curious about working with Sharon or checking her out, you can contact her. Tell us your website so people can go find
It's
you.
www.houston-yoga-ayurveda, ayurveda.com. And you could definitely do that. Best way to call and speak to me, because it's a one-man show over here, or one-woman show, really. It's 281-256-8461.
Okay. And then if they don't want to call, they just want to email you, why don't you tell them your email address?
Yes, it's healing at houston-yoga-ayurveda.com.
Okay, cool. And those are dashes and not underscores. So they're
That's
in the
correct.
middle. So perfect. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share before we say goodbye and wrap up this episode?
Yeah, if you're watching this episode, please reach out to Lydia and ask her your questions so that when she is preparing for the next episode, whether with me or with anybody else, she has then an opportunity to represent your questions. So please
Yes,
reach out to
actually,
Lydia.
yes, great. Thank you for saying that. That's a great thing for me to mention. And how they can do that is they can comment below on the episode on the whether it's Facebook that they find it on or YouTube, there's going to be comments below the videos. So you can ask your questions. There's also a way to contact me through YouTube to send me your questions so that we can create episodes with Sharon around your questions and we could try to answer them. And actually, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, because if Sharon and I start to do live Q&A type conversations, we'll have a comment section in the right-hand side of the screen where we can read the questions live and we can go on live and have active conversations with Sharon and answer your questions live. So thank you so much, Sharon,
Absolutely.
for
Each one teach one. So when you communicate with Lydia, we are able to teach you based on what it is that you want to. Let's make it
yeah,
personal.
exactly. I love that. And whoa, this introduction went way over what I really wanted to, but I think it's important to kind of give like that whole basis for the foundation. And then when we dive into segments, more specifically, we can just make them smaller videos, because I know people don't have 45 minutes to sit on every single video, but it's good. It's just a good intro, a good way to expose you. I mean, if you want to dive into your specific situation, you need to call Sharon.
Please do.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye,
And
everybody. Thank you for watching and be healthy and be wise.
exactly. So we'll talk to you soon. Hang on there, Sharon. I'm going to close it up. All right. Bye, guys.